We're going to look at the introduction aspect of the interview. A lot of people have asked about this, and so we're going to look at it in the context of jobs mainly, but also exams. Now, there are three moving parts that we have to be aware of as we have an interview. And so we're going to go through all of them very briefly. Your posture, which is how you position your body, the form of greeting, and then the actual language, which of course is what primarily interests us today. All right, so let's begin with the forms of greeting. So before COVID, it was common to shake people's hands as you went into a room, either for a job interview or for an exam. If the examiner got close enough, sometimes they don't get so close so you're not able to shake their hand. But now that we have COVID and, during COVID and even after COVID, things are starting to change. We're reluctant as individuals to touch other people's hands for obvious reasons. In the West, they've adopted, it's rather informal. I don't think you would do this on a first meeting, but this has been very popular, the fist bump. I think globally more common at interviews would be more of a head nod, hello, nice to meet you, something like that. Just a small gesture, a small head nod, I think is appropriate now during these times of COVID, and even afterwards, I think it will be appropriate. In other words, not to touch the other person, even with the hands. All right, the posture. Now, these are things that you might not be aware of, so I want to talk about them because they're ever so important, because they elicit a first impression. So we make a first impression three ways: how we greet somebody. Obviously, the handshake was what we used to base that on. Was it a firm handshake or a normal handshake? Our posture as we greet them is a second element of that first impression. And I'm suggesting that you keep your shoulders back. You don't have to be uncomfortable, but you want to exude is a good word, E-X-U-D-E. You want to exude confidence. If you're confident, people think that you are qualified for the job, or they might think that. So confidence is really important, and it begins with your posture. So have good posture, which means your shoulders are back, not to where you're uncomfortable, but to where you're confident. And even when you're sitting, I'm sitting, your shoulders should be back. If you're like this, do you see the difference between this when I'm presenting and this when I'm presenting? It's a completely different vibe that I give off. And you have to know that, because the examiner or the interviewer will also take note of your posture. So I recommend you practice in front of a mirror or record yourself. When I first started doing these videos, my posture wasn't very good, and I've had to improve it. And I think as I've improved my posture, my presentation or my performance has also improved. So keep a good posture, and good postures are not always comfortable, so we have to practice it. Now let's get to the language, because that's what we're here to talk about. What to say. I'm going to do a short greeting, and then we're going to practice a longer greeting. So here's the shorter greeting. It's a generic greeting that I would recommend in most instances. So you greet them with a hello. They're Mr. or Mrs., I think is safest. Last name, and then you tell them your name, and then if you want to add a line about why you're here, what you're interviewing for. So that's the formula we're going to use, and we'll practice it now. So let's begin with a few examples. So I will say it, and then I would like you to repeat it at home so that you can practice it. So, hello, Mr. Smith. My name is Chris Korten. I'm interviewing for the marketing position. It's nice to meet you. You try it. One more time. Hello, Mr. Smith. My name is Chris Korten. I'm interviewing for the marketing position. It's nice to meet you. Now you can insert your own name. You don't have to say my name. All right, now a few things. Don't address someone by their first name until they've given you permission. So I think always in these sort of formal settings, you say Mr. or Mrs. if you know they're married, the female, or if you're not sure, you can say Ms. MS is Ms. And so that also works. Let's practice it one more time with a different title. And here we address people by their titles if you know the title. So, hello, Professor Smith. My name is Chris Korten. I'm interviewing for the English teaching position. It's nice to meet you. Practice that. One more time. I'm going to say it, then you say it. Hello, Dr. Smith. My name is Chris Korten. I'm interviewing for the English teaching position. It's nice to meet you. All right, now when might you have to say this? When you sort of just enter the building and you see the person you're interviewing with, you can go ahead and introduce yourself as you're shaking their hand or as you're giving a nod, the sort of greeting. This would be appropriate. Now, let me just say right now, this is not the only way to do it. There are many ways to do it. For me, I sort of feel the circumstances and react appropriately. So sometimes there might be a better option. This is a neutral option that will nearly always work. But if you have a good feel or a sense of your surroundings, you can go ahead and improvise if you want. Improvise means sort of make something up on the spot. But for a lot of us, we are nervous if we're speaking in English, so we might want to memorize something and then practice it so it sounds natural. This is not the only way to introduce yourself, but it is a generic sort of way of introducing yourself appropriately in most circumstances. Now let's do the longer, more complicated version and look at what it adds, the value it adds. So when are you going to have a longer version? This might be when you just sit down. So the secretary calls you into the room and you have a seat, and then the interviewer might begin by saying, hello, tell us about yourself, or introduce yourself, please. So these are two prompts, we call them prompts or questions, that you might be asked. And here are two suggestions. We're going to repeat them twice, and I would like you to repeat it after me. I want us to repeat these so you start to learn good English style and syntax. So let's begin. Now, before we get to that, I just want to say that we have a few guidelines I want to talk about. One is to be upbeat and energetic. Now, obviously be natural, be who you are. You don't have to go crazy, but you want to be a little bit more energetic than you might normally be, because that generates excitement, interest, and people are more interesting if they have more energy. So if you're a low energy person, try to work on being a little bit higher energy during the interview, which you might already be because you're nervous. So a little bit more energy, and that's where tone comes in. They can feel the excitement in your voice. Be clear. and prepared. I cannot emphasize that enough, and I will emphasize it again at the end about preparedness. But clarity is important. So introductions are the third way you offer a first impression. So remember, it was the handshake was a first impression, your posture is a first impression, and the first sentence out of your mouth is a first impression. So you want to be clear and prepared. I'm going to suggest that you play it safe, that you don't say anything risky to avoid, in other words, avoid offending people. So I would not opt for a high-risk introduction. I would play it very safe in the beginning until you understand your surroundings and who you are speaking with. All right, so now let's move on to the dialogue. It's a bit longer, but all right, so I want to read it first, and then I want to talk about it, and then we'll have you practice it after I discuss it. So I'll read it through here. Well, as you know, now that's optional. If he's just mentioned your name here, if he's just said, Chris, tell us about yourself, then you can say, well, as you know, my name is Chris Korten. I'm from the US. Most recently, I've been living in Europe, and I'm here today to interview for the position of English Teaching Coordinator. This position interests me very much because it matches my experiences and aligns with my future aims. All right, now a few things here. Now, it's more detail, obviously, but it's an introduction that shows you're prepared. Now, the interviewer will obviously ask you about all these questions during the interview, your experience. But I think this makes a great impression on you're prepared, you want the position, you want it enough that you've prepared an introduction. Anything to make you stand out, but still be natural, I think is very positive. So this is one way to do it. Now, I've made a few notes in smaller print that I want to make you aware of. Be prepared for the next questions. This opening sort of offers itself the follow-up, very natural follow-up questions about matching past experiences. So what are your past experiences? And what are your future aims? And so this is a great opening or gambit, if you will, to borrow a chess term. It's a great opening. If you want to sort of try to lead the interview and sort of, you're hoping then they will ask about your past experiences and your future aims as the follow-up questions because you have answers prepared. So this is an interesting sort of strategy where you sort of actually lead the interview, at least in the beginning. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you the formula here, and then you're going to repeat it after me. So the formula is the following: name, place, where I'm currently living, the position I'm interested in, and why I'm interested in it. So those are the four things. Those basically don't change. So I'm going to read it, and then I want you to read it. So here we go. Well, as you know, my name is Chris Korten. I'm from the US. Most recently, I've been living in Europe, and I'm here today to interview for the position of English Teaching Coordinator. This position interests me very much because it matches my past experiences and aligns with my future aims. You practice it, try it. Okay, I think we might have just finished. Now, notice this is a bit longer. Some of you will opt for the shorter option, But this is a longer option that shows that you're prepared and eager for the position. And here's an option that's even more assertive. Assertive means a little bit more confident, a little bit more aggressive. And I want to ask you and see if you know why it's more assertive. What is it in this that I say that makes it more assertive? So I want to read it, and then we'll talk about it. My name is Chris Korten. I'm from Munich, Germany. I'm a head teacher at Monmouth English Language School, and I'm interested in your position as director. I feel that I'm well suited for it because I've had stints as director at my school when my boss has been away. These experiences were always very positive. Now, the reason this is more assertive is because I state my interests, and then I also state one experience already in the introduction. So I'm letting them know that I'm ready. I'm ready for this position, and I have experience, albeit small. I have experience that I think lends itself well to occupying this position in your company. And so the small print below, I'll have you read it in a minute. The small print below says, identify what you think is the key quality in the position. So this is why it's more assertive. If I think experience is the key quality, I include that in my introduction. I highlight the fact that I have experience for that position. Now, if I don't have experience, then I look for a different quality, key quality. But I tailor it to my own story or narrative. Now, the second small print says, anticipate the follow-up question and be ready. So the question could be, why don't you stay there and wait for the promotion? And I have an answer ready for that. Because my boss doesn't plan to retire in the next 10 years. So I'm ready for the follow-up questions. I'm prepared. Preparation is so crucial in these interviews. So let's take a look at the formula. Oh, here we go. Here's the formula. My name, where I'm living, the position I'm occupying, why I'm interested, and why I'm qualified. That's the aggressive part. I'm adding more information, which makes it a little bit more, longer, interesting, and I think appealing to the employer. So that's another formula. You can take a look at these on YouTube later and watch them again, or take a screenshot if you want. But these are basic formulas. So let's read it one more time. I made small adjustments that have not come out in this slide, so I apologize. I use present perfect in the middle part exclusively. Let's try it. I'm going to read it again, and then you read it. My name is Chris Korten. I'm from Munich, Germany. I'm a head teacher at the Monmouth English Language School, and I'm interested in your position as director. I feel that I'm well suited for it because I've had stints as director at my own school when my boss has been away. These experiences were always very positive. You try it. Put your name in it to get practice, your name. All right, I think we're nearly finished. So I've highlighted the key words. Well suited means it's appropriate for my experience. I'm well suited. I'm suited for the position. It's something that applies to me. And stints are small job experiences or small periods of time. I've had a stint is a small experience. there. And I think I underlined a few words here. Matches and align. So those are words that you can use in the introduction if you want. Now, I want to go to the English introduction for an English exam. I think it's much more basic and straightforward. Hello, I'm Chris Korten from Tokyo, Japan. I'm taking the IELTS to gain admittance into a university in the UK. So what have I done? Why don't you repeat that? But you can state your name if you want. Try it. All right. Now, what's the formula here for this? Very basic. My name, my location, and why I'm taking the test. Keep it very simple. Keep it very simple. I've also done that with if you look at the formula here for the job interviews, it's the most important information. Now, what's interesting is by sort of starting that way, the interviewer knows a few things. One, you're prepared, and two, you understand what's essential about this meeting. My name, where I'm from, the position I occupy, the position I'm interested in, and why I'm qualified. These are essential parts of information, I think, to sort of introduce to the interviewer, and then this allows for a very interesting discussion. Now, of course, this is only the introduction. It's not the middle part. It's not the end. That's a separate presentation or a separate Instagram live. But this is a very good opening. So let's move to the final thoughts here that I have. Oh, key ideas. Let's look at the key ideas of the introduction. Your introduction should provide basic information that the interviewer needs to know. That's the first thing. We've done that with the formulas. All four formulas address that. Second, a good introduction is one where you act naturally, assume a good posture, and speak English naturally. Now, I practice. When I have an interview, I practice by myself in front of a mirror or to myself. You need to prepare. Prepare. This is very key. Number 3, this is an advanced strategy that I suggested a few minutes ago. Your introduction can lead the interview in the direction you'd like it to go, or you'd like it to, if, by the way, you create your introduction. So you create, if you talk about or highlight a past experience, then they might begin with your past experiences. If you highlight the future aims or endeavors or future goals, then this is something obviously they will ask you about. So you can actually be a little bit strategic in your introduction. But it all leads to preparation. You have to have the introduction ready. You have it memorized so that you can be comfortable. You are going to be nervous. So you want to be very well prepared, and you want to anticipate the likely questions they're going to ask you. And in another live I gave that's on on YouTube, I talk about the 3 questions you have to be prepared for in an interview. Go to my YouTube account, you'll see that questions in an interview. Those are 3 questions you must have. All right, for those of you who came late,